Hello and welcome to a very special program. We are coming to you from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. This is a get-together of some of the world's most powerful, some of the world's most wealthy, some of the world's most influential political leaders, business leaders, academics, people from the arts fraternity as well. And the big theme over here this year is sustainable development and global economic resurgence. That economic resurgence comes amidst a crisis in the global economy as a result of the pandemic. But that is a crisis that continues, not least of all because of what is taking place in Ukraine with the Russian invasion. In fact, a great deal of what is happening at the World Economic Forum has discussions on Ukraine taking place, sanctions which have been imposed against Russia. There is an entire pavilion over here showcasing the war crimes which have been committed in Ukraine. And so that's one part of the conversation here. On the other hand, there is a very large Indian presence. In fact, this is possibly the third largest Indian presence at the World Economic Forum ever. We've got several chief ministers here. You've got several pavilions over here as well from various states. And all of these states are looking to promote investment. They're looking to fight off concerns in India over inflation, over foreign capital going away, over conditions for investment perhaps being less than ideal in some senses. It is, however, true that foreign investment figures have been quite positive lately. But all of these various chief ministers will be looking at sustainable development, at green development, at the IT sector and several other areas. In the course of our programming over the next few days, we are going to be speaking to certain industry leaders, some of the top ones from India and indeed from around the world, to get an idea of the India story here in Davos, Switzerland. One of the major themes at the World Economic Forum in Davos this year is Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The fact that there have been so many human lives which have been lost in Ukraine, the fact that there have been so many reports of human rights violations, something that we as journalists have been able to independently corroborate, is something which is actually being discussed by world leaders. And over here, I'm at a particular pavilion which looks at Russia's war crimes in Ukraine. Ksenia joins us for more on this. She is a curator of this very sad display with images, in fact, including of graves which we have visited in the Chernihiv area. How in Davos this year are Russia's war crimes a primary focus?
Our focus is to show what Russia is doing now, and it didn't stop. It's keep going. We have here a map with the statistics. We have a lot of photographs of our artists and a video from Alexei's side with evidences of war crimes of Russia. And we do it in the former Russia House. But there is no Russia this year in Davos. But we wanted and we made it. We want to show the place what they are doing now.
Yeah. And where in Ukraine are you personally from?
I'm from Bucha.
And Bucha saw some of the worst I was in Bucha when a lot of the bodies were being exhumed. What was your family okay? Were they affected by this? Did they evacuate?
Yes, I evacuated with my daughter on the third day of war. I didn't stay at Bucha, luckily, and that's why we are alive now. And now with Pinchuk Art Center, the art center from Kiev, I'm making Ukraine more visible for the world.
This must be incredibly difficult for you personally. The fact that family members have been affected, the fact that there is so much loss. To put this together, tell us how difficult that was.
It was very difficult, and all our team, they were collecting photographs from our photographs, and we collected near 5,000 photographs, and we had to select them, to select the most speaking, the most prominent photographs, because our photographers, they are risking their lives to make these evidences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your courage in bringing this even more to the International Forum. Just a couple of key points over here as we actually move to this area and take a look at some of the other images. Now, this is likely to actually have been a coincidence, but the India pavilion is located next to this particular pavilion, which looks at the Russian war crimes. India is one of the few nations in the world which hasn't voted against Russia in key international fora, in other words, the United Nations, choosing instead to take a path right down the center. European leaders have always said India needs to do more. India says that our national policy is ours and we will be guided by self-interest. However, here is another interesting anecdote. The Ukraine House or the Ukraine Pavilion, which has been set up in Davos this year, has been set up by an Indian entrepreneur in Davos. Funding was difficult for the Ukrainian government this year. It was an Indian entrepreneur in Switzerland who chose to fund the completion of the Ukrainian Pavilion in Davos. In Davos, Switzerland, Vishnu for NDTV. Well, among the many interesting companies from India over here in Davos 2022 is Meesho. It's a company that operates in the e-commerce space. It's considered a startup even though they've been here around for about 7 odd years. It's one of the most interesting Indian companies that actually aims at bringing small retailers and bringing them into a larger market, giving them a much greater presence and using social media platforms to ensure that that happens. Vidit Aatrey joins us now, co-founder of Meesho. Thanks very much for being with us. There is a lot of concern in the global economy now. There are external factors which are influencing the Indian economy. Does that affect the space that you're operating in as well?
First of all, thank you, Vishnu, for this conversation. Great to be here and sharing the Meesho story. I think before I answer that question, let me kind of take a couple of minutes explaining what Meesho is for the audience that doesn't know much about it. So we are an e-commerce platform focused on bringing the small business economy in India online. And so far, we've been able to get about 1 million small businesses. These are small manufacturers, traders, distributors across the country online. And over the last 1 year, we had 100 million, which is 10 crore buyers in India, transact with them. Right? So like a very large percentage of the small business economy has come online, but we believe this is just the beginning and it will be much, much larger. Now talking about like what's happening in the global economy, like first thing is, I think to some extent, Indian economy has been like somewhat shielded. Like it can never be completely, but if you see what has happened in the Indian stock market as compared to the global one, India is still much better. But concerns around inflation, etc., are happening in India. In India, we saw RBI raising some rates. So I'm saying some of these actions are happening, and it's going to impact the economy for sure. And we see in our case, for example, like a lot of small businesses, they see their raw material cost rising. We see like people spend a lot less when the inflation goes up, and they spend a lot more in things which are more non-discretionary like food and less in some of the other things. So there's definitely a lot of impact that's going to come. How much would that be? I'm not really sure.
But what about concerns about layoffs? Because we've seen that in just the last couple of months now. Several companies, I believe Meesho itself may have been impacted. Is that a matter of concern that you maybe grew at too fast a pace?
Yeah, I would say like the market expectations have changed. So if you look at last year globally, like what market rewarded was growth, right? And now because of all the dynamics changing, like the cost of capital going up, now people reward profitability a lot more, right? So suddenly like you have these thousands of companies who have to change their direction really fast because the market expectations change. And because of that, some of these things are bound to happen. They're sad. Like you're not prepared because your plan was focused on how do you keep growing 3, 4, 5x year on year. And now suddenly you want to make positive EBITDA. So I think those goals changing kind of bring some of this. I believe it has just started. It will happen a lot more in the ecosystem. And this is the time when all companies have to come together and help these people.
So are you trying to consolidate in terms of your own business? Realize that perhaps your initial expectations were unrealistic, at least in the present post-COVID context. Is that the phase you're in right now?
So we have definitely changed our goals for the year. Like I think I would say a quarter ago, when we realized that the world is changing, we said we cannot have the same goals that we had last year. It cannot be only growth. It has to be growing profitably. So we have changed those goals basis which we have prioritized certain things and deprioritized certain things, which is, as I said, would be happening everywhere in the ecosystem. So we have done that. We are a lot more focused on margin right now. We are a lot more focused on making sure that all the growth that we do comes while like we serving our small businesses, our consumers, because this is all the time when inflation is going up. Like you increase prices, people are already affected. So you have to make that entire structure a lot more lean. So I'm saying all of these things we've been kind of working on, and I would say that everyone would go through this, but this is right for the ecosystem. Like you have to do it at some point in
It's
time.
been, what, 150 layoffs or so at Meesho, right?
So a lot of that happened because of like this priorities changing.
Right.
Like this did not happen in our core business.
Right.
It happened in one of our new initiatives, which is Meesho. It's a grocery arm.
Yes.
And what we did was like there were certain places where it was just not making economic sense, and basis our plan for the next few years, we did not think it's the right thing to continue doing that.
Right.
In our core business, we've always been unit economics positive. So it did not mean that when we are changing this direction, we have to kind of go back and affect our team, and that's not going to happen.
You really want to, and so many other startups want to take on the big players sometime. Obviously, that would mean upscaling much, much more than where you are right now. But do you realistically see, your model actually reaching or connecting small retailers with a larger space ever being in the same league of a Flipkart or an Amazon in terms of reach?
I would suggest that I don't think we compete with any of the two players you mentioned. Right? When we started this company back in 2015, small businesses were not online.
Right.
And now, because of the platform we created, we see a lot of them moving online. Right. So we essentially created a new market.
Yeah.
Right? And we've
But
been
that
focused
market is
on
potentially huge, is why I asked.
Yeah, it's very
Because
large.
in terms of the small retailers, the numbers of those who would actually want to reach out to many more, the small businesses.
Correct.
The numbers are phenomenal, which is why when I ask, about potentially having a reach similar to say Amazon or Flipkart in India, is that not something you aspire for?
Yeah, again, I don't think
Is
we
it
look
realistic?
at any of the companies and we say these are benchmarks for us. I would suggest today, because the small business economy in India is much larger. By the way, 85% of all retail in India is small business led. So it is a much, much larger market. And I would say because of that, our reach beyond the metros is much, much higher than any other player.
Yeah.
But this is a new market.
Yeah.
Like these businesses were not selling online before. These consumers were not buying because the small businesses they buy from were not online before. So we've created a new market, and that's why we don't consider any of them competition.
Sure. Now, you are also apparently going to join the government-backed open network for digital commerce to create Misho Mall, right? What's that all about?
So I would say like some of this is like hearsay. We would definitely partner with ONDC. So ONDC is very, very close to our mission. It is also trying to help small businesses come online, and we will work with them and say what can we do for the next few million small businesses to come online. If we can do it together, it's going to accelerate our journey, getting closer and closer to our vision. So we're kind of becoming a part of that. Misho Mall, I think, is like a very speculative thing. We've been discussing how do we bring some of the larger small businesses across the country reach consumers as well. And these are local brands, right? So this is what we are focused on. And it is still aligned with our core mission. I don't think we are deviating at all from there. So that's why I'm saying I don't know how these two things have been put together to create some news before us. But these are two different things we are doing, and again aligned to our mission of digitizing the small business economy in India.
And what brings you to Davos?
I think this is like a great place for us to kind of connect with lots of people who are very relevant to us, right? So you look at a lot of people from the government are here, and we want to kind of tell them the Meesho story, because what is going to happen in the policy around small businesses like is very, very vital to the ecosystem and the mission that I talked about. So this gives us a forum to kind of meet a lot of them together. This is also a great place for us to kind of meet a lot of global investors that you don't catch up with like very often. So that's another thing. And third is like some of the larger companies are here. Like these are like management folks or the CEOs of companies that we want to learn from. So it's a great place to also learn, get mentorship. So it's like my first time, and I'm super excited here to kind of meet a lot of them, learn from them. And this is just getting started today.
Well, good luck to you and all the very best.
Thank you so much.
Excellent opportunities for you over here, and it's a promising model. Let's hope that it is sized correctly, and going forward the future is exceptional. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.